My golden child sister tried to steal my wedding day. I finally found love, peace, and a life beyond the family that trained me to disappear. Yet the moment I stood at the altar, their obsession with controlling me exploded in front of everyone. What unfolded was a spectacle of manipulation, betrayal, and a public unraveling none of them ever expected. Hi, I'm Nate, 30, and my entire life felt like one long audition for a family that never wanted me. But the day I got married, that was the day everything finally flipped. I grew up as the family's unofficial background character, while my sister Melissa was the golden child, capital G, capital C, underlined, highlighted, and laminated. If she sneezed, my parents praised her lung capacity. If I got an A, they wondered why it wasn't an A+. If she punched me, it was playful roughhousing. If I breathed too loudly, it was attention-seeking. It was that kind of childhood. And before you ask, no, I have no idea what I did to deserve being cast as the family disappointment before I could even walk. My working theory? I was unplanned and inconvenient, like a pothole or a laptop update that forces a restart. By the time I was 10, I already knew the rules of the house. Melissa is right, always. If Melissa is wrong, refer to Rule 1. If Nate is right, reinterpret it until he's wrong. She'd accuse me of stealing things that were literally in her hand, and I'd still be grounded. She once dropped her birthday cake, cried, pointed at me, and boom, no TV for a month. Meanwhile, my own birthdays were basically covert operations. One year my cake was strawberry cream, my sister's favorite, and the one flavor I was allergic to. When I pointed this out, my mom said, "Don't be dramatic, just eat around it." My entire childhood was basically eat around it. By high school, Melissa couldn't keep friends, shocker, and when she noticed that I had some, she made it her full-time job to sabotage them. My parents backed her every time. According to my mother, the reason I wasn't allowed to hang out with anyone was because we don't want you exposed to bad influences like your sister says. Right. Because Melissa, who once convinced me to eat a dead cricket for a science experiment, was the moral compass of the household. The only people who kept me sane were my cousins. One day when they invited me out, I stupidly told them, "I'm not allowed to have friends because Melissa doesn't." Big mistake, nuclear-level mistake. Because extended family? They lit my parents' UP. It was glorious, until I got grounded for lying. But honestly, worth it. And things only got worse as we got older. Melissa brought boyfriends home and was treated like she'd discovered fire. I brought home one boyfriend, and she immediately tried to flirt with him, then accused him of coming on to her when he rejected her. Guess who was banned from dating? Not the golden child. Guess who got lectured about having terrible judgment? Not the golden child. By the time college rolled around, my parents told me, very gently, very tearfully, that they couldn't pay for my education because they were paying for Melissa's. And because they knew me, they didn't trust me to make smart choices. So I'd need their approval for any student loans. Their approval for their scapegoat. Cute. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. Because I had already planned my escape. And the day I got that full scholarship, I posted it on Facebook before I told them. Pure survival instincts. Once it was public, they couldn't stop me without looking like monsters. Not that that ever stopped them before, but still. College was my first taste of freedom. Sunlight, oxygen, actual joy. And it was there that I met the man who would later become my husband, and my partner in the greatest wedding day revenge my family never saw coming. And trust me, they really didn't see it coming. College was the first place in my life where people didn't look at me like I was a defective microwave. I could breathe. I could make friends without someone running behind me whispering, "He's trouble, he smells weird, he once stole my pencil in 3rd grade." And then I met him, my future husband. If I'm a doormat with feelings, he's a flamethrower in human form, with even better aim. Where I freeze, he fires. Where I swallow resentment, he marinates in it, seasons it, and serves it back with garnish. Naturally, I fell in love instantly. He loved me just as fast. He read my childhood like it was a psychological horror novel and immediately became obsessed. Not with the tragedy, but with the potential. "This is ripe for revenge," he once said while I was venting. Like, season finale revenge. Series finale even. I thought he was joking. He was not. Fast forward a few years, we decided to get married. A small chill ceremony, mainly so we could spend our money on a European honeymoon instead of feeding 120 people dry chicken. Then came the fatal mistake. We announced the engagement. My parents went from zero interest in my life to demanding to meet my future husband, as if they were auditioning him for the role of person we will blame for everything after Nate. I was hesitant. Distance had diluted a lot of the childhood pain, and part of me stupidly hoped they'd mellowed. But my fiancé? Oh, he was thrilled. He had already bought a tiny recorder to hide in his pocket. He had contingency plans. He had spreadsheets. The man treated meeting my parents the way generals treat Normandy. "I'm ready," he said, grinning like someone about to commit a delightful crime. "Do not deprive me of this." So off he went, alone, practically skipping. He returned hours later, eyes sparkling like he had just discovered fire, or at least a match in a highly flammable shed. "Babe, you won't believe what they said." I braced myself. "They want Melissa to walk down the aisle. First, in a wedding dress." I laughed. He didn't. He held up the recorder. My parents genuinely, seriously, wanted my sister, the golden child, to have a practice wedding walk at my ceremony. Photos, dress, cake, everything but the groom. I sat there stunned, not surprised, just stunned. Like you know the train is coming, but you still can't believe it actually hits you. "But why?" I finally croaked. "Would they think that's okay?" My fiancé shrugged. "Because they're insane? Anyway, you want revenge, or you want revenge?" I didn't even know I wanted revenge until that moment. But suddenly, I wanted it more than oxygen. And we began planning. We had diagrams, a timeline, contingency branches. We even looped in his brother, who acted like our internal ethics committee, telling us things like, "That part could get you arrested," or "Please don't hire a live tiger." Eventually we settled on a clean, simple, elegant plan. Pretend to agree. Let them think they're winning. Then slam the gates shut. Literally. We'd hire security. Real security. And Melissa's big moment would end at the door. Of course, that was only the beginning. Because while they thought they were using us, we were about to milk them for everything they had ever denied me. And yes, it gets so much better. This is where everything snapped into place. The moment our quiet little revenge plan mutated into something far bigger, far funnier, and far more dangerous than either of us first imagined. My fiancé, God bless the chaos in his DNA, went back to my parents' house to think over their request. In reality, he was primed to play them like a violin that had wronged him personally. He walked in looking somber, thoughtful, deeply concerned. Oscar-worthy acting, truly inspiring. "So," he said, settling onto their couch, "I talked to Nate. He wouldn't approve. He's just so sensitive, you know? Emotional, reactive." My mother nodded like she had been waiting her whole life for someone to agree that I was a delicate, malfunctioning radiator. "But," my fiancé added, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "I don't want family drama. I love Nate, but sometimes he doesn't understand things clearly. So if you three want this, Melissa walking down the aisle first, I can help make it happen." Melissa literally clapped, like she had just won The Bachelor. And my parents? They looked relieved, as if someone had finally spoken their language. Manipulate Nate for his own good. Then my fiancé delivered the masterstroke. And because Nate is so paranoid, So controlling about cheating, we can't put anything in writing. No texts, no emails, nothing he could stumble onto. My mother gasped. He checks your phone? He nodded gravely. He's insecure. Reader, I almost passed out laughing when he later told me this. Me, the human doormat, the conflict avoider, the person who cries during arguments even when I'm winning. But to my parents? Oh, they devoured it. Finally, a flaw in me that made sense to them. From that moment on, every evil little plot they made happened in person, with no digital footprint. They thought they were being stealthy. Really, they were wiping out their own alibi. Now here's where the midpoint hits. My fiancé didn't just pretend to cooperate. He used their greed, their favoritism, and their desperate need to center Melissa to bleed them for the wedding they never intended to pay for. Everything they pushed on us? He redirected it into upgrades, expensive upgrades. My parents wanted to help? Perfect. They'd pay. We kept choosing the cheapest options in front of them. Then he'd take Melissa back later, show her the nicer things, sigh dramatically about how, we don't want to burden your parents, and she would predictably stomp her feet and demand the upgrade. It worked every single time. Want an upgraded bar package? Done. Want higher tier catering? Easily manipulated. Want better flowers, decor, photography? Melissa practically threw tantrums insisting her parents prove their love. It was glorious. While they thought they were controlling the wedding, they were actually funding the most luxurious party my husband and I had ever attended. And then it got even better. They tried to sabotage my real dress by giving me an ugly one. My fiancé pretended to go along with their new plan, then staged evidence that he'd ruined my preferred dress. He took scraps from alterations, brought them to their house, and said, "She's losing it. I have to go calm her down." Melissa clapped again. She thought she had won. She thought this was her moment. She thought her wedding cosplay dream was coming true. Meanwhile, we had hired professional security, briefed half the wedding party, and prepared a quiet little ambush that would detonate the golden child fantasy in front of dozens of witnesses. Everything was finally set. The golden child was about to meet a golden wall she could not push through, and the aisle she thought she'd walk. She wouldn't get within 20 feet of it. The morning of the wedding felt unreal. Not because I was getting married. No, that part was perfect. It felt unreal because my stomach was buzzing with the kind of adrenaline you only get right before a controlled demolition. We arrived early. We checked in with the venue staff, and then we met our secret weapon: security. This man was a wall. Broad shoulders, expression neutral, demeanor somewhere between "I work for the CIA" and "I have thrown people out of moving vehicles." When my husband explained the situation, he nodded once. Not shocked, not confused, just understood. We promised him a very generous tip if he kept everything quiet. He promised he would. I instantly felt safer than I ever had in my parents' home. Now, the first stage of the plan was subtle. Make everything look normal. Guests arrived. My friends chatted. The bridesmaids lined up. A woman at the door checked names, but nothing else. My parents arrived, smug, smiling like they had orchestrated the wedding of the century. They scanned the space, probably making sure there was a spotlight ready for Melissa's entrance. And then, once they were seated, once they relaxed, once they believed this was all going according to their script, we brought out the real security. Our hulking sentinel walked to the front doors and took position like an avenging angel, or a very polite bouncer. Either way, perfection. Now here's the key detail. Melissa and my parents had timed their little stunt. She was supposed to arrive exactly when the ceremony began, so I'd already be hidden, unable to stop her bridal walk. They were so proud of themselves for this. The music started. My bridesmaids went down the aisle. My father, who was supposed to walk me, stood by the entrance, waiting for me. Then his phone buzzed, and there it was, the text from Melissa. "I'm almost there." My dad made the signal. "Start the ceremony." Except there was one problem. Actually, two. Problem one, Melissa hadn't entered the building. Problem two, I had. When the doors opened and revealed me, fully dressed, bouquet in hand, my dad's face did something miraculous. It contorted into shock, confusion, panic, and anger, all in one motion. He stepped forward like he was going to whisper something, but the music swelled, and the guests stood, and he froze. He couldn't stop me without causing a scene. He was trapped in etiquette hell. I started walking. People whispered. My mother stiffened. My bridesmaids quietly exchanged, "Oh my God, it's happening" glances. Then my dad's phone rang. He panicked and walked away, from me, right as I was halfway down the aisle, which looked, well, awful. A friend of mine, in on the plan, loudly gasped and said, "What does he mean it wasn't supposed to be her?" My knees literally wobbled. Partly acting, partly old trauma, partly the overwhelming desire to laugh hysterically. Guests murmured. People started standing to see what was happening. My father left the ceremony entirely. My mother followed. And I continued down the aisle, alone, until my husband's father practically sprinted forward, grabbed my arm and whispered, "Showtime." He walked me the rest of the way, grinning so hard he looked like he'd been waiting his whole life to rescue someone from emotional goblins. I made it to my groom. He squeezed my hands. "You look incredible," he whispered. "Your acting was so good I almost believed you were sad. You deserve an Emmy." Behind us, chaos. Guests slipping out. Guests returning with reports. Whispers spreading like wildfire. But the ceremony proceeded. We said our vows. We kissed. We were married. And outside, Melissa was detonating. If the wedding ceremony was beautiful, elegant, and emotional, then everything happening outside the venue doors was the exact opposite, like a live-action reenactment of a toddler tantrum, but more theatrical, more desperate, and wearing significantly more tulle. Let's set the stage. Melissa arrived in a full wedding gown, not a white dress, not something bridal-inspired, a full-on, lace-covered, sparkly, veil-equipped wedding gown. She looked like she was about to marry a Disney prince, or kidnap one. And then the doors didn't open. Security stepped forward. He said the line my husband and I had rehearsed with him a dozen times. "Ma'am, you must be at the wrong venue. The bride has already arrived." Melissa froze, then screeched, "She is not the bride. I'm supposed to walk first." People inside heard that one. My dad rushed over, puffed up like a bullfrog trying to intimidate a tank. "Let her in. She's the real bride." Security, bless this man, didn't blink. "If you'd like, sir, I can call the police to verify my employment here." My dad turned purple. Actually purple. Meanwhile, my friend, the chaos agent we planted, bolted outside, pretending she'd come to check what was wrong, and immediately started shouting, "Why is she in a wedding dress? Why is she screaming? What is this?" She was absolutely committed to her role. Oscar-worthy. People began flooding out to witness the spectacle because nothing in human history spreads faster than the scent of drama at a wedding. My mother arrived just in time to see her golden child kicking the ground, literally, because she wasn't being allowed inside. And it got so much worse. Everyone started asking, "Wait, why was she supposed to walk first? Why is she dressed like a bride? Did Nate know about this? What kind of parents do this?" And because Melissa and my parents have the collective strategic intelligence of a wet paper bag, they immediately threw my husband under the bus. He agreed to this. It was his idea. He said it was the only way. He told us not to put anything in writing, which was the best part, because then my husband walked out, calm, composed, slightly squinting, like he smelled stupidity. And he said, voice loud and steady, "What are you talking about? Why would I ever agree to something so insane? Do you have any proof?" Silence. The three of them realized, too late, they had been meeting with him in person. No texts, no calls, no receipts, because they thought they were being clever. He turned to the crowd. "Seriously, does anyone here think I'd let another woman walk down the aisle before my own husband? Dressed as a bride? The crowd murmured. No one believed my parents. No one believed Melissa. Especially not while Melissa was crying so hard her mascara was forming small tributaries down her chin. Then she escalated. Oh my God, he betrayed me. He was supposed to sleep with me on their honeymoon to make it look real. Everyone recoiled. My husband, and again, bless this man, stared at her like she was a raccoon who had just tried to climb into his dishwasher. I don't even like you, he said flatly. And what the hell is wrong with you? People lost it. One of my aunts actually gasped so loud it echoed. Someone's grandmother clutched her pearls so dramatically she almost fell over. And then the final blow came. Not from us, but from the crowd. Multiple guests, furious, embarrassed, and disgusted, told my parents, "You need to leave. All of you. Now." My dad tried one last time. "You can't make us leave our own child's." "Yes," someone snapped. "We can." Security stepped forward. They left. Melissa had to be physically dragged up from the ground. She clung to the pavement like it was her emotional support asphalt. And inside, no one told me a thing. They all walked back in smiling, complimenting my dress, hugging me, handing me champagne like they were in a musical number called Act Normal for the Bride. My husband? He came back in trying to keep a straight face so hard his lips were twitching. "I need to go into the bathroom," he whispered, "to laugh until my ribs hurt." The reception felt like everyone had signed a secret treaty to pretend nothing happened. Guests ate, drank, complimented my dress, and absolutely glowed with secondhand satisfaction from the drama they'd just witnessed. My parents and Melissa were gone, permanently escorted out. The air felt lighter than it ever had in my entire life. Halfway through the night, people kept slipping out, returning wide-eyed, whispering updates to my husband. Eventually, he came back to me looking furious, on purpose. "She's still outside," he murmured, screaming that I betrayed her. "Your parents are arguing with strangers in the parking lot." He wasn't actually mad. He just didn't want to break character and start laughing again. Meanwhile, everyone treated me like royalty. Turns out being the scapegoat who finally snapped gets you a lot of free champagne. The wedding was perfect. The food was amazing, paid for by my parents' manipulation. The atmosphere was electric. And for the first time ever, I was the center of something good. By the time we left for our hotel, no one was talking about the ceremony. Everyone was talking about the meltdown. My sister had become a cautionary tale, and my parents weren't far behind. The morning after the wedding, my phone looked like it had been attacked. Calls from my parents, voicemails from my dad, and then a long, unhinged message from my sister blaming me for humiliating her on her big day. Her big day. My husband nearly framed the screenshot. We didn't respond. Instead, my husband posted everything, call logs, texts, the meltdown, into the extended family group chat with a calm message. "Please help. They're now harassing us on our honeymoon." Support poured in instantly. My parents were told to back off. My sister was told to get therapy. They all went silent. And that was it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the scapegoat. I wasn't the problem. I wasn't the overlooked child. I was the one who got married, got free from them, and got the last word, without even raising my voice. Melissa didn't walk down my aisle. My parents didn't control my wedding. Their entire scheme collapsed in public spectacularly. And me? I finally got to walk into a new life, with someone who made sure I never walked alone again.